Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 16.5 Beta 1 has been out for a few days, and so far is a small update just like many first betas are. As we get closer to iOS 17, Apple needs to save some bigger features for that version instead. So far with iOS 16.5 Beta 1, we have three features that we know of. Siri can activate a screen recording, turn on a screen recording. And you'll see it enables. Of course, we can just turn it off like this. That's available. Also, we have news, which also gains a sports section now. So we have an all-new sports section in news, and we also have code that hints at a quad box picture-in-picture TV for sports. Let me show you what that could look like. You'll see here, posted by my friend Steve Hidikali, hopefully I'm saying that properly, made sort of a diagram of what it could look like with picture-in-picture up to 4 different displays at once. So that's within the code, as you can see here, and that's something that we'll probably see added to in the future. So usually with Beta 1, it's pretty minor as far as the updates, but there's also some other things that we're waiting on. So we have 3 different features we know Apple's working on. One of those is contact key verification in messages, which would verify messages sent to and from different people to verify that it's legitimate. Also, Apple Card savings accounts. So now that we have Apple Pay Later, I don't currently have it in my wallet app yet, but if you're seeing that, let me know in the comments below. But we're also waiting for that Apple Card savings account and updated versions of CarPlay. Now, this could be working with the manufacturers, whether that be anything from Mercedes-Benz to Porsche to Chrysler or Ford. So at this point, it looks like we may have to wait for them to integrate it into their vehicles directly or something else. So those are features we're waiting for. Maybe we'll see them in iOS 16.5 since they've been in the code, and Apple promised that updated CarPlay with iOS 16's introduction at WWDC last year. Now, many of you have been asking me about the beta profile on iOS 16.5. If you don't wish to actually install the update, but you're still seeing the option. So if you go into your settings, you go to General, then Software Update, you'll see the option for beta updates. You can change this, of course, and if you even turn this off, it will still show up. So if you want to disable it, you can, but the thing is it will still be here since you already signed up with Apple on beta.apple.com, or maybe you're a developer at developer.apple.com. This will just show up. If you don't want the betas, turn it off. If you do, enable them and you'll get the next one. In order to go back to the current version, so iOS 16.4, you would still need a computer though. So I've been getting that question an awful lot lately. So if you're on the beta already, you'll have to wait till the next one or use a computer to downgrade. Either way, you should have the option now since you signed up for it with that Apple ID. Now, I just wanted to mention briefly that Apple announced WWDC 2023. It's a week long, June 5th to the 9th, and it will show off on the first day where they typically have a keynote. They'll show off iOS 17, watchOS 10, macOS 14, iPadOS 17, and whatever else they have, whether that's a reality headset with Reality OS or something else. We don't really know, but that's what Apple should show off the first day. We'll be able to watch it online. You can sign up to attend in person, but it's mostly to be watched virtual. You can also sign up for the Swift Student Challenge. I did a separate video with more details about that though, but that's at developer.apple.com, and you'll be able to watch the keynote live on your phone, iPad, YouTube usually, and elsewhere. Now, as far as other releases this week, I wanted to mention a couple other things. One of those is Apple released iTunes 12.12.8 this week. So far, they haven't released the new apps for Windows with Apple Music and things like that. They still have iTunes, and they've updated it this week. Also, Apple updated their older iPhones with iOS 15.7.4. Unfortunately, you can't get this on other iPhones that could previously get iOS 15. So you'll see 15.7.4 here. And on this iPhone 8 Plus, I actually have iOS 15.7.2. And if we go to Software Update, unfortunately, it only shows 16.4. So if we go to About, you can see we have 15.7.2. Unfortunately, there's no way to update the iPhone 8 Plus anymore with those versions because Apple doesn't make the IPSW files available. So unfortunately, we still have 15.7.2 lacking the security updates. Apple wants you to jump to the latest 16.4 version. I would love to see them continue to support the older versions on phones like this for people that just don't want to update it. Maybe we'll see that in the future, but unfortunately, I don't think so. Now, as far as a few things with news, and then we'll talk about iOS 17 and then the experience of iOS 16.5. Overall news for this week, well, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. One of them has to do with Apple CarPlay. Now, with Apple CarPlay, we've had it in many different cars for quite some time, and according to General Motors, they're getting rid of it in their future EVs. They're going to work with Google, and this sounds sort of like what Volvo does, but they typically allow you to use CarPlay if you want. I think this is a terrible idea, as Tesla and companies like Rivian don't currently offer CarPlay, but it's not too much of an issue as their overall entertainment systems are quite good and they integrate Google Maps anyway. However, I think really people should use or give the option to allow Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So I think that's a bad mistake on their part, but we'll have to see how that plays out in the future. Also, a couple other things I wanted to mention is Bing integrating ChatGPT, increasing its capability with DALL-E with image creation, Bard with Google, and AI in general are rapidly being developed and rolled out. More and more are concerned about where it could lead without some sort of control or mandates in place. Many think it should be paused for now, including Steve Wozniak, who helped co-found Apple, as well as others, where they think common rules and laws should be made before it gets out of control. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Now, as far as iOS 17 supported devices, we haven't heard a whole lot about this. Hopefully we'll get some leaks pretty soon, but Apple will let us know on June 5th. But as far as what's to be supported, we think iPhone won't really change any of its support with iPhone 8 Plus, but if they drop anything, it would be the 8 Plus, the 8, and the iPhone 10. Hopefully they keep the support for the iPhone 8 Plus, or at least give us updates with iOS 15 to bring it up to 15.7.4. Either way, hopefully they continue to support it if it's just a stability update with some minor features. And speaking of those features, we're expecting some nice features. What that means, we don't really know, according to Mark Gurman. He said just some nice features with stability. So maybe split view like we have on iPad, maybe a few other things, just some minor upgrades, but don't expect any major features such as the lock screen update this year. Maybe they'll bring back some features we've wanted for a while with maybe 3D touch sort of interactions with wallpaper and things like that, live wallpaper, but so far it's not looking good. I would love to see sort of a redesign, but I don't think we're going to get that this year. Now, as far as iOS 16.5 Beta 1, it seems to be off to a good start. Now, based off the YouTube community poll, we'll take a look at some of your comments later on. There's 7,500 plus votes and over 117 comments. Most people say it's pretty stable so far. We do expect some bugs, and of course you want to report those in the feedback app if you're having anything major, but there are some things to talk about as far as bugs, but first it seems to be fairly stable. I really haven't had any app crashes. I haven't had too much happen as far as that goes. The phone is performing well. We'll talk about that in a minute, but in general, it seems to be pretty good. As good as 16.4, maybe a little bit better. Now, as far as bugs, though, there is a major bug that I experienced, and it's caused a problem over the past couple of days, specifically with the sleep wake alarm. So if I'm using sleep and it switches to a sleep focus mode, the alarm wasn't going off for me. I had to set a regular alarm for that to work. So you'll see I have it set for 9:25 a.m. in the morning. I changed this to 8 a.m. I changed it around. It didn't actually enable. So I'd find myself waking up late, much later than expected, so I'd have to turn on these alarms here, just the regular ones, in order for the alarm to work. That's a pretty big problem. So that's one of the issues. One of the other issues you may have already noticed is on the iPad or any phone really if you're using the weather widget. Sometimes it will say no weather data, and it will work, but you have to go into it. It takes quite a while, then it updates, then it works properly. And it's still not working properly on the iPad, but on my iPhone it's working. But this morning I noticed it wasn't there for some reason. So there's still a bug going on with that widget. People have been asking me about it. Definitely seems to be an issue. Now, I've had 2 people mention issues with Wi-Fi disconnecting. Personally, I haven't experienced this, and like I said, it's only 2 people, but it seems to be an issue, and the same is true with Bluetooth. Some people are saying they're having that disconnect again. So I'm not seeing that. It seems to work fine for me. It actually connected on the other iPhone quicker, but AirPods are working fine. They're connecting quickly, and they're staying connected. I used them this morning with my watch. I went on a walk and did have a little bit of interference at first, but then no issues after that. I don't know if it was the watch or if it was the iPhone, but either way, it could have just been the AirPods and maybe they need a firmware update. As far as other bugs, I've seen some people say they keep getting prompted for their iCloud passwords over and over. So that's something I think quite a few people have mentioned, where it just keeps popping up. Also, some people continue to see squared off notifications. So in notifications here, they're seeing it squared off, and I'm not really seeing that. In fact, most of the notifications are working properly now for me compared to 16.4, but some people still say they're squared off. Let me know if yours are doing that as well. Now, we'll talk about battery and performance in a moment, but let's talk about iOS 16.5 Beta 2's release. Since we're on typically a bi-weekly schedule with the release, once we have the first one out, usually we don't get weekly releases until we get to about Beta 3. So probably nothing this coming week. Typically the second week out is when we'll get that update. I think probably the 10th or 11th we'll see that update. So maybe a final release of iOS 16.5 in May at some point before WWDC. Then we'll get iOS 17 betas along with iOS 16.6 betas as well, all the way until we have a final release of iOS 17 in September. That's usually what Apple does. Of course, they could change it, but that seems to be likely. Now, as far as battery life on iOS 16.5 Beta 1, well, it really hasn't been great for me so far. This phone in general hasn't been great with the last few updates. That seems to be my phone in general, though. If we go to battery, take a look at battery health and charging, I'm at 98%. With battery health, that's 145 cycles in. That's fine. 80% after 2 years is completely normal according to Apple. So it's doing okay there. But if we take a look at my battery, yesterday I only had 2 hours and 5 minutes of screen active time, 5 hours and 17 minutes of screen idle time, and used over 75% of my battery. There's really no reason for this. I wasn't using it as a camera or anything intensive. And the day before that, 3 hours and 12 minutes of screen active time and used over 50%. It's really draining very fast for me now. When I was on the previous version of 16.4, it was much better, double the amount of screen active time, even though it wasn't perfect. So I may have to completely wipe this device. Hopefully it will fix that in the future, but maybe I'll wipe it, start over, and see if I can actually fix those battery issues. It could be my car keys, though, as they require a lot of location information when you walk up next to them. So that could be partly due to what's causing the issue, but it's still not really acceptable for me. As far as overall performance seems to be fine, whether that's the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 14 Pro Max or an older phone. Going into different applications, whether that's the camera or something else, seem to be okay. Now, speaking of the camera doesn't seem to be fixed now. I showed this in the 16.4 video. If I just snap a picture here on the 11 and then snap a picture or a screenshot here, just in general, it processes it. Now, it seems to be more of the 14 Pro doing the problems or causing the processing problems. So if I take a photo here and again share this, you can see what it looks like. It seems to be okay, but again, people are saying it's processing too much. There's too much HDR going on, and Apple really needs to give us a switch or fix that or just find some sort of resolution for it. As far as the heat of the device, this has been cool the entire time, so there's no issues there. I know some people are concerned with that, but it's barely warm at all, even with the screen on during this entire video. No issues whatsoever for that. While it is getting warmer outside, I really wouldn't be concerned. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the comments and see what you had to say. Richard Gilbert said, on iOS 16.5, using on iPhone 14 Pro Max and having issues with internet, saying it's connected but having no service. Andy Corton said, using iOS 16.5 Beta 1 on my iPhone 11. It seems okay, battery life is okay. Apple Music issues seem to be okay now, but notice that a few times after charging my iPhone 11, I've been getting a message to put my passcode in to use iCloud again. Nate Tech said, iPhone 14 Pro Max 16.5 dB1. I had an issue in the morning after install where Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and cellular would not stay on. I would turn it back on in Control Center, then all would turn off. A restart fixed this and have been bug-free since. Battery life has improved each day since the install. It is much closer to what you expect from a 14 Pro Max. Yesterday, 4.25 hours screen on time and used 35 to 40% of my battery. 1 hour 38 minutes of that was playing 8-ball pool. Ross Spencer said iOS 16.5 has been good so far on my 14 Pro Max. Good battery, no problems, definitely an improvement over the last couple of updates. So that's everything with iOS 16.5 Beta 1. Of course, I expect more features with Beta 2 and even more with iOS 17. Let me know if you found anything else. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description as I always do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.